Is blindness a barrier? No.
Is deafness a barrier? No.
Are mobility, learning, cognitive disabilities, speech impairments and others, or even a combination of them, barriers? No way. Lack of accessibility is.
Welcome to Web Accessibility for All.
Follow the blind. This journey starts now.
Hey my friend, welcome back to Web Accessibility for All, the show where we get into the details of inclusive web design without losing our minds in tech jargon. I am Ariel, your host, Senior Software Engineer, Web Accessibility Specialist, and yeah, I'm also blind, so I've got a front row seat to how digital gaps really feel. Today's topic is a quiet one. We are talking about the absence of data. I mean, literally, what do you show when there's nothing to show? No rows on the table, no value on a cell, no data points in a chart, no search results. Here's where the real issue shows up. This silence. It's louder than you think. And when you are using a screen reader, or relying on clear focus indicators, or you are filtering content on a small screen, this moment can be deeply confusing.
It's not broken, it's just empty.
Let's start with a story. A designer I once worked with freaked out during a demo session.
Hey George, why is the chart blank? Did you break it?
No, it's working fine. There's just no data to show.
Why does it look like something went wrong?
Exactly. A blank interface often looks like an error, especially when there's no message, no visual indicator, and nothing for assistive tech to announce. So, people guess. They reload. They question their own input. And that's a problem, because the absence of data is not a bug. But if you don't decipher it, it might as well be.
Tables with no rows? Structure still matters.
Let's take a simple case. A data table that is filtered down to nothing. What do? Some folks just remove the table. Others leave the headers floating in the void. And both of those decisions break the mental model of users who rely on structure, especially screen reader users.
A better way.
Keep the table, keep the headers, and in place of data rows, add a single row that clearly says something like,
"No records found for your selection."
make sure it spans across all columns, and that your table still includes accessible markup. Also consider adding an ARIA label to the table itself to describe its purpose.
Less table. ARIA label equals invoice list greater. Less thed greater. Less tr greater. Less th scope equals col greater invoice number less slash th greater. Less th scope equals col greater amount less slash th greater. Less th scope equals col greater date less slash th greater. Less slash tr greater. Less slash thed greater. Less t body greater. Less tr greater. Less td callspan equals 3 greater. No invoices available. Less slash td greater. Less slash tr greater. Less slash t body greater. Less slash table greater.
If filters are involved, acknowledge that too. Say something like,
No invoices match your current filters.
that context helps everyone. And by the way, this also helps visual users. It prevents that eerie moment of seeing an empty shell with no explanation.
When the chart goes quiet,
Charts are trickier. They often live inside a canvas or an SVG. And when there's no data, developers sometimes just render an empty graph with a border and a title. To a screen reader, that canvas is silence. To someone using a magnifier, it's just an unexplained box. To someone with cognitive differences, it's disorienting.
What should we do instead?
Don't render the chart. Render a message. Wrap the chart area in a landmark or region and give it a label. Then, if there's no data, just drop in a paragraph that says something like,
There is no data available for the selected time range.
this isn't just more accessible, it's good UX. The chart didn't fail. There's just nothing to plot. That's a very different message.
hyphens and /a, and the accessible cell problem.
Alright, zoom in closer into a table cell that's supposed to show a percentage, but the value is missing. What do you put there? A lot of devs use a hyphen. Some write n/a for not available. Others leave it blank. Here's what happens with each. If you use a simple hyphen, it might be not read at all by screen readers. n/a sounds good to us visually, but it can be pronounced weirdly by screen readers, or just something confusing. A blank cell may be mistaken for a bug.
So what's the best option?
If you want to keep a visual cue, go ahead, but also provide an accessible label. Use a visually hidden span with something like
Data not available.
and keep the symbol visually for sighted users.
Less TD greater. Less span. Class equals SR only greater. Data not available. Less/span greater. Less span. Aria hidden equals true greater. And dash. Less/span greater. Less/TD greater.
This way, screen reader users get the full message, and sighted users see a familiar convention. Everyone's on the same page.
Focus inside an empty space.
Now imagine navigating with keyboard. You hit Tab or issue a voice command to move to the next region. And it's empty. Do you hear anything? See anything? Get stuck? It happens more than you think. If your app renders a panel, a sidebar, or even a tab panel that doesn't contain any results, that region still exists in the DOM. And if someone lands inside it, it should still say something.
What to do?
Give it a heading. Use Arial label or Arial label by on the region, and include a short message as well.
Less div. Role equals region. Aria label equals revenue chart greater. Less p greater. No data to display. Less/p greater. Less/div greater.
That avoids the disorienting effect of entering a silent space.
A note on color and meaning.
Back in the early 2000s, dashboards with no data would often show gray blocks, maybe with dashed borders. It felt neutral, like this isn't broken, just not filled in yet. But here is the problem. Gray is often used to mean disabled. So if a user sees a gray graph area, they might assume it's inaccessible, not just empty. Under WCAG, color contrast still applies, even for empty states. Text needs a contrast ratio of at least 4.5 to 1. Icons or visual indicators still need to be distinct. And more importantly, avoid reusing color cues that already imply interaction states. Think of it this way. Disable means you can't. No data means there's nothing here yet. Those are very different messages.
Should you render the component at all?
So here is the million-dollar question. If there's no data, should you even show the component? Here's a guideline I recommend. If the component is part of the user's mental model, like a table, chart, feed, or content panel, then yes, render it. But make it clear why it's empty. If the component is purely visual and has no role, like a graph in a dashboard that hasn't been configured yet, maybe show a placeholder instead, with instructions or even a call to action like
Select a time range to begin.
The important part? Never leave people guessing. Empty doesn't mean invisible. It means something could be here, just not yet. And that message deserves to be said out loud.
Nothing is still something.
Designing for the absence of data isn't just a fallback state. It's part of the user experience. And if you don't plan for it, someone would feel lost. So, keep your structure. Say what's missing. Use symbols wisely. Don't let color do all the talking. And most importantly, don't let silence speak for you.
Wrapping up.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with something that really stuck with me.
Providing an empty state is good practice as it informs people that nothing is present when something could be.
That line is from the Intelligence Community's design system, and it says it all. Because absence isn't just silence, it's part of the conversation. It can tell us something's missing. It can guide us to take action. As designers and developers, we need to treat nothing with the same care we give to every button, label, or interaction. Because for someone using assistive tech, that nothing could be the loudest message on the screen. Thanks for listening to Web Accessibility for All. If this episode gave you something to think about, please share it with your team. Like, subscribe, and start a conversation about how your product handles the invisible state. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining us today. Subscribe for a new challenge next week. And don't be shy. Leave us a review or ask your accessibility questions online. See you next week for another episode of Web Accessibility for All.